CIA does a good job of playing to the mythos. So when General Petraeus used to be the director of CIA, 2000,
and your workout partner,
and my workout partner.
I read about this.
So I loved and hated those workouts with Petraeus because he is a physical beast. He's a strong, fit, at the time 60-something-year-old man.
Let me take a tangent on that because he's coming on this podcast.
Oh, excellent, man.
So can you say what you learned from the man in terms of, or like what you think is interesting and powerful and inspiring about the way he sees the world, or maybe what you learned in terms of how to get strong in the gym?
Yeah.
Or anything about
things.
life?
Two things right away. And one of them I was going to share with you anyway, so I'm glad that you asked the question. So the first is that on our runs, and man, he runs fast, and we would go for 6-mile runs through Bangkok. And he talked openly about, I asked him, how do you keep this mystery, this epic mythology about your fitness and your strength? How do you keep all of this alive with the troops? And he had this amazing answer. And he was like, I don't talk about it. Myths are born not from somebody orchestrating the myth, but from the source of the myth simply being secretive. So he's like, I don't talk about it. I've never talked about it. I've never exacerbated it. I just do what I do, and I let the troops talk. And he's like, when it goes in favor of discipline and loyalty and commitment, I let it run. If it starts getting destructive or damaging, then I have my leadership team step in to fix it. But when it comes to the mythos, the myth of him being superpowered soldier, that's what he wants every soldier to be. So he lets it run. And he was fantastic. It was so enlightening when he told me, when there's a myth that benefits you, you just let it go. You let it happen because it gets you further without you doing any work. It costs no investment for you.
So the catalyst of the virality of the myth is just being mysterious. And
that's what CIA does well. To go back to your first question, what does CIA do? They don't answer any questions. They don't say anything. And wherever the myth goes, whether it's that they sold drugs or used child prostitutes or whatever else, wherever the myth goes, they let it go. Because at the end of the day, everybody sits back and says, wow, I really just don't know. Now, the second thing that I learned from Petraeus, and I really am a big fan of Petraeus. I know he made personal mistakes. You don't get to be that powerful without making personal mistakes. But when I worked out with him, the one thing that my commanding officer told me not to ask about, he was like, never ask the general about his family. I'm a family guy. So as soon as I met General Petraeus, one of the first things I asked him was, hey, what was it like raising a family and being the commander of forces in the Middle East? Like, you weren't with your family very much. And the thing I love about the guy, he didn't bite off my head. He didn't snap at me. He didn't do anything. He openly admitted that he regretted some of the decisions that he made because he had to sacrifice his family to get there. Relationships with his children, absentee father, missing birthdays, we all say how sad it is to miss birthdays and miss anniversaries, yada, yada, yada. Everybody knows what that feels like. Even business people know what that feels like. The actual pain that we're talking about is when you're not there to handle your 13-year-old's questions when a boy breaks up with her, or when you're not there to handle the bloody lip that your 9-year-old comes back with from their first encounter with a bully. Those are the truly heartbreaking moments that a parent lives and dies by. He missed almost all of those because he was fighting a war that we forgot and we gave up on 20 years later, right? He's so honest about that. And it was really inspiring to me to be told not to ask that question. And when I broke that guidance, he didn't reprimand me. He was authentic. And it was absolutely one of the big decisions that helped me leave CIA on my own in 2014.
And he was honest on the sacrifice you make.
The same man who just taught me a lesson about letting a myth live. That same guy was willing to be so authentic about this personal mistake.
I like complicated people like that. So what do you make of that calculation of family versus job? You've given a lot of your life and passion to the CIA, to that work. You've spoken positively about that world, the good it does. And yet you're also a family man and you value that. What's that calculation like? What's that trade-off like?
I mean, for me, the calculation is very clear. It's family. I left CIA because I chose my family. And when my son was born, my wife and I found out that we were pregnant while we were still on mission. We were a tandem couple. My wife is also a former CIA officer, undercover like me. We were operating together overseas. We got the positive pregnancy test, like so many people do. And she cried. My wife was a badass. I was like the accidental spy, but my wife was really good at what she does. And she cried and she was like, what do we do now? Like, it's what we've always wanted, a child, but we're in this thing right now. There's no space for a child. So long story short, we had our baby. CIA brought us back to have the baby. And when we started having the conversations about, hey, what do we do next? Because we're not the type of people to want to just sit around and be domestic. What do we do next? But keep in mind, we have a child now. So here's some of our suggestions. We could do this and we can do that. Let us get our child to a place where we can put him into an international school, or we can get him into some sort of program where we can both operate together again during the day. But CIA just had no patience for that conversation. Family is not their priority. So the fact that we were a tandem couple, 2 officers, 2 operators trying to have a baby was irrelevant to them. So when they didn't play with us, when they did nothing to help us prioritize parenthood as part of our overall experience, that's when we knew that they never would. And what good is it to commit yourself to a career if the career is always going to challenge the thing that you value most? And that was the calculation that we made to leave CIA. Not everybody makes that calculation. And a big part of why I am so vocal about my time at CIA is because I am immensely appreciative of the men and women who, to this day, have failed marriages and poor relationships with their children because they chose national security. They chose protecting America over their own family. And they've done it even though it's made them abuse alcohol and abuse substances, and they've got permanent diseases and issues from living and working abroad. It's just it's insane, the sacrifice that officers make to keep America free. And I'm just not one of those people. I chose family. If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip, or here to see the full podcast episode.
So fresh, so new.